Jean Evansmore. I'm one of the tri-chairs of the Poor People's Campaign. We have a lot of stuff going on in this nation that we got to take care of, and we are going to be kept very busy, no matter what the weather. We need you. We need you to show up, and when necessary, we need you to show out. Let's do it.
That's right.
Okay, Pam?
That's right.
Hello, I'm Pam Garrison with the West Virginia Poor People's Campaign. This is no April Fools. We're real West Virginians, and we're here to speak out. We have a message for the 49 and 8. We're still working for poverty wages. We're still struggling, trying to make ends meet.
That's right.
This might be one of the most important votes that y'all make. The For the People's Act. They're trying to shut us up. Y'all have ignored us, but we're still here.
Yes.
Now you want to shut our voices, take our democracy. So we're here for a message for Senator Manchin, Senator Capito, and for the Senate. We want to ask y'all, which side are you on?
That's right.
Are you on the side of a filibuster? Are you on the side of the people and democracy?
Yes.
Help us. Help us. Pass H.R. 1, the For the People's Act. Stand with us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell her.
I am the Reverend Caitlin Cotter Quailberg, she, her, hers, minister of the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Charleston, West Virginia. Even in this frigid weather, it is a joy to have you here on the shore of the beautiful Kanawha River, here on the west side of Charleston. Welcome, y'all. Welcome. I am here this afternoon as a religious leader and proud Appalachian American, asking you to join with people of faith across our wild and wonderful state and our beautiful hurting nation on the side of love. We know that bold action by politicians is what West Virginians want, that we need our elected officials like Senator Capito and Senator Manchin to be helping us make this a West Virginia that our children and grandchildren can call home.
That's right. That's
We
right.
know that when it comes to our elections, we all want a transparent process we can trust, where we all have equal freedom to vote and every voice is heard. We know that for democracy to work for all of us, it must include us all.
That's all. That's right.
The work of love, senators, is the work of creating a system and government that serves all of us. The faithful and courageous thing to be doing, senators, is protect the people's freedom to vote and right to a decent wage. The moral thing, the brave thing, the right thing, senators, is to be the leaders West Virginia and our nation needs. Senator Capito, Senator Manchin, please be with us on the side of love, of hope, of a better tomorrow for the people of West Virginia and our children and grandchildren and all our nation. Senator Capito, Senator Manchin, we are asking you to love West Virginia, to listen to the people of West Virginia, to help ensure this is a place where all of us can thrive and flourish. Please, senators, choose love. Choose us.
That's right.
Thank you. Amen and blessed be.
Amen. Pastor, I want y'all to know that there are literally tens of thousands of people online and other media that's online. Some of the media here said, you know, we're too busy, but we know how politicians can call in and do whatever and get them to stand back. But the bottom line is you all are speaking to people across the nation, media that's all across the nation, so let them hear as folk come and give their 2 minutes. But that's not just 2 minutes. It's critical. It's critical that the nation hears when we talk about these issues. God bless you.
First things first, rest in peace, George Floyd. I'm sorry that you had to pass away. Second, my name is Martise Washington. I once again still stand before you, an unfreed black citizen. My voting right is being attacked. My rights as a citizen are being attacked. My wages as a citizen are being attacked. And I have two representatives that do not care, that don't take time out, that don't have any compassion, that don't have any morals. They don't have any love for any of us here. There are people, there are families who are struggling every day to make ends meet. And you mean to tell me that $15 can't be accomplished for a minimum wage? That's not fair. There are people out here every day going to work. And you mean to tell me that you cannot protect their right to vote? That's not right. That's not morally right. And that's not mentally right. We all live here in the wild and wonderful free land of West Virginia. But I feel like we live in a prison. I feel like the walls are caving in. I don't know about y'all, but the last 6 to 8 months have been, excuse my language, but hell. Not only as a black person, but as a West Virginian.
That's right, that's right, that's right.
At every single turn, we've been told no, or you can't. No, we can't have any food. No, we can't have a right to living wages. No, we can't vote. Now they're telling me, no, I can't go and stand in front of a deck on inanimate object. I mean, how many rights are you going to take from me? At what point, Senator Capito, Mr. Manchin, are you going to stand up and be like, you know what, there's no need for a filibuster. We gotta start working for our people. These people out here that are in the freezing cold, standing right now, are the people that voted for me, are the people that support me. We're the people that are making those phone calls. Stand up for us.
That's right.
We're out here crying. We are tired. We're working hard. We're putting in the work. Can you do the same?
That's right, Mom.
How do you sleep at night? I don't.
That's right.
Because I don't know where my next meal's coming from. I don't know where my neighbor's meal's coming from. I don't know how the family next door is going to make ends meet. So I'm out here trying to help them. Help me help them. One, teach one. Wear 2 masks if you can.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. Yes, yes.
Come on, Caitlin.
My name is Kaylin Barker, and I'm honored to be here today to speak on behalf of West Virginians. In the response to the 2013 Supreme Court decision of Shelby County v. Holder, the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, "The struggle for fairness in elections is not over, though the tactics of those who would suppress voting have changed." But she was wrong. The tactics are the same. The attacks on our electoral process may be more fervent than ever, but the tactics remain. Voter suppression laws have and always will be an attempt to silence the voices of poor, minority, and working people in this country. It is not a partisan issue. It's not red versus blue, Dem versus GOP. It's the have versus the have-nots.
That's it. That's it.
It is the wealthy elite versus the rest of us. And the sooner we realize that, the stronger we will be.
That's right.
These laws are simply a way to keep us from coming together and fighting back against the establishment of both parties. This has always been their strategy. The elite have acted to silence the poor, minority, and working class people in this country since the words "We the People" were written down. West Virginia is no stranger to this tactic. We know what it's like to be kept down by the ruling class. The struggle for freedom and equality have been fought on this land since 1863 when we broke from Virginia. West Virginians have a long history of fighting for what's right, and it's time for us to continue that tradition. From Mother Jones and the miners of Matewan, Bill Blizzard and the Redneck Army of Blair Mountain,
That's right.
to our incredible educators, we always stand up. Our ancestors fought and died so that we can continue that fight and stand here today. It's time to honor that sacrifice by coming together once again. Passing the For the People's Act is a major step forward in our fight for equality by bringing veracity back to our elections and ensuring that voting is accessible to all of us. It's time for we the people to come together and demand accountability from our elected officials. It's time for Senator Manchin, Senator Capito, and the rest of the Senate to prove that they have integrity by giving us integrity in our elections.
Yes, ma'am. Young lady. You're Mark. You're Mark.
My name's Matt Kerner. I'm the Executive Director of Opportunity House in Buchanan, West Virginia. And it's an honor to be here. with Reverend Barber. And this time of year for me, as a person living in long-term recovery from a substance use disorder that led me down a path from relative prosperity to poverty, from a life full of possibilities to a life of homelessness and incarceration, the Easter season is always a powerful reminder that we can all be reborn into a brand new life. Many of us are under attack. Economically, the poor are being attacked in our federal legislature and here in our state. And as someone who's told that I chose addiction, I was told that so often that I started to believe it myself, and I started to wonder if it was true. And now those same people telling me that my LGBTQ friends chose their orientation. They chose their sexual identities. And I know that's a lie. I know it wasn't true for me and it's not true for them. They are being used to distract us. The attacks on them are meant to keep us from paying attention to what they are doing to us economically.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
I know that when they're attacked, it's my responsibility not just to be aware that they are who they were meant to be. It is my responsibility to stand up in their defense. Not because I see them as the least of these, but because I see them as my wonderfully queer friends who are fully equal and do not deserve to be disparaged, degraded, marginalized, or dehumanized for being exactly who God intends them to be. Right now, just down the street, there's a building with a gilded dome where decisions are being made about how we will fund the operations of one of the poorest states in this country. In that building, legislators who themselves have refused to wear masks or be vaccinated have insisted that because of the COVID pandemic, they be allowed to work outside the view of the public. Well, they discussed changes in tax policy that would eliminate our progressive income tax system and replace those funds with some of the most regressive taxes possible. We would be left with a sales tax that is the highest in the nation, and the restoration of a food tax, something that is essential for life, would be taxed once again. Well, some legislators worry about the impact of that change on border county businesses. I worry about the impact of those changes on the already hungry. In that building, trans folks are being dehumanized based on unfounded fears, and a failed pilot program designed to take TANF benefits away from the needy who turn in positive drug screens. It's being made permanent, even though it has helped no one. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Danny, you're up next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Danny Parent. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm from Huntington, West Virginia. We are here today to address the inequality that has gone on too long, perpetuated by those with more than we have at every level. The national calls for equality are strong, they are loud, and they are hopeful. But we here in West Virginia often feel othered, like the national narratives don't apply to us, or like we're overlooked in the larger conversation. There's more than enough inequality at home that needs to be handled, and many of those in power in Charleston are doing what they can to keep it up, not fight against it. Our state legislature is trying to pass a bill to cut the number of days for early voting, specifically the days with the highest turnout for early voting. Those early voting days benefit folks with hourly jobs who can't take off work, and folks in rural counties who need an hour just to get to town. The legislature's also voting on whether to gut automatic voter registration passed in 2016, still never been implemented, making it opt-in instead of opt-out. To borrow a joke, that sounds like manual voter registration to me. Those who represent us are also voting on a bill called the Social Media Integrity Act, makes it harder for websites to share information about undeniably objective facts about our elections, including election dates, registration requirements, absentee ballots, polling place locations, ID requirements, etc. Who benefits from these measures? Who benefits from keeping poor folks from voting? Who benefits from redrawing the lines? They are trying to silence us.
No.
I believe it is our moral obligation to lift each other up, to help one another, and to love each other. It's time we stand up and demand equal access to opportunity across the nation, and especially here in West Virginia.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Shalom.
Shalom.
I'm Rabbi Victor Yurek, and I'm blessed to be standing with you today. As you get ready for Easter, the Jewish people are toward the end of the Passover season. And I want to share with you what I said to my congregants as we began Passover. I reminded them last week that as we retell the story of the plagues in Egypt, I wanted them to think about one plague in particular, darkness, where Moses held out his hand toward the sky and thick darkness surrounded the land of Egypt. The Torah says that the Egyptians did not see their neighbor, or for 3 days they did not leave their homes. And I said to my community, a plague of darkness, really? After turning the Nile to blood, cattle disease, hail from the heavens, that's the best that God could do? How is darkness even a plague? Didn't the Egyptians have torches? But I asked them to perhaps consider that the text is signaling to us that this plague of darkness may not be a physical darkness, but rather a moral affliction that had overrun Egyptian society.
That's it.
What if it was a societal darkness, the corrosive darkness of an unjust society that after years and years and years of looking away as the Israelites suffered, now no one saw the pain of their neighbor. No one cared about the vulnerable who were struggling in the streets. No one stood up against cruelty. My friends, that's the darkness that I fear is descending upon this country today. The darkness of indifference. So many Americans are struggling with food insecurity. Millions are living in poverty, working 2 or 3 jobs because wages are so low. Families cannot feed their children. Systemic racism is found in every sector of our society. And those who speak up and want to say enough are now being suppressed at the ballot box. There is darkness that's engulfing America, not Egypt. And those in power either do not want to see the pain of those who struggle in the dark, or will not leave their homes and extend their arms to the needy. We are here today because we see the plague of darkness, and we are here to push back against the callousness of indifference. Thank you.
West Virginia, I'm honored to be able to be here today, and I want you to know that what you see me wearing is not because it's dress up. I don't believe in dress up. But this is attire that I only wear on the holiest of days. Attire when we're dealing with holy things. And this is a holy thing when you talk about dealing with injustice. Rabbi, it is our holy requirement. And I want to ask those that just spoke, if we can do it COVID safe, that just kind of come around here. Those that were just speaking. We've got people online from all over the world. We've got magazines and reporters, and I only came to draw the attention to these folk. And I want to take some time today. It's the first time I've spoken like this on these matters, because I'm a little concerned about us framing everything that's happening sometimes only in terms of white versus black. Racism must be addressed, but we must understand what the ultimate goal of even racism is. And that is not just to push down African Americans and Native and Asians and brown people, Latino, but to divide. I'm so glad my sister decided to bring Mother Jones into the room. Mother Jones said, you pray for the dead, but you fight like hell for the living. That's that West Virginia spirit. I told y'all my granddad is from these areas. And the West Virginia PPC invited us to come to have this press rally and service of foot washing and invite both your senators here today. We did it. This is Holy Week, and a part of this week is challenging greed and injustice. On Monday of Holy Week, Jesus overturned the tables of the money changers and those who were robbing the people. On Thursday, he washed the feet of his disciples, remembered the Passover, and when the Jewish people reminded themselves of when God stood against the oppression of Pharaoh on their behalf. After the supper, Jesus was betrayed by a man who was paid 30 pieces of silver. And then on Friday, Jesus, who said, "The Spirit of the Lord was upon me to preach good news to the poor." Jesus, whose last sermon said that every nation will be judged by how it cares for the poor, the hungry, the immigrant, the sick, the least of these, was crucified as a rabble-rouser who loved to be among the poor. We come here today to say that every person in power, and your two senators, need now to heed the word and the example of the prophets and the example of Jesus, heed the morality of God and care for the poor and the low wealth of the state and the nation, and stop crucifying and undermine policies that would lift everybody. Stop crucifying, stop filling the pockets of the corporations and the wealthy so they can walk around with more money than they ever need. And start washing the feet of the poor and low wealth by passing policies that push back greed and instead promote grace, love, and justice to meet the needs of all God's children. And West Virginia ought to be the last place that has senators protecting the filibuster. This ought to be the last place that has senators that are blocking the immediate passing of a $15 minimum wage. This ought to be the last state where senators are standing against slowing down voter protection. And the only way any senator or politician can do these things in West Virginia is because they must have stopped listening to and caring for and washing the feet of the massive number of poor and low-wealth people, and instead they care more about filling the pockets of the few with more money. That's the only way. Because those of you listening across the world and the nation, in West Virginia, 42% of the people here are poor and low income. In West Virginia, that's 757,000 people. In West Virginia, from 1979 to 2012, the income of the top 1% grew by 61%. But the income for the bottom 99% went down. In West Virginia, 53,000 veterans have incomes less than $35,000 a year. In West Virginia, over 133,000 people are uninsured. In West Virginia, 46.9% of the census tracts, people are unable to afford water. In West Virginia, the legislature is now trying to make it more difficult. And the nation needs to hear that. I know Georgia, I understand that. And that's it, that's part, but why are they passing voter suppression laws in West Virginia? There are not even that many African Americans in West Virginia. So ultimately, voter suppression is about trying to shut us up. They're trying to roll back the automatic registration law right here in West Virginia. And I don't know how many of you know, when you talk about Jim Crow, when Jim Crow and slave code laws were listed in 1709 in Virginia, it was because black and white people had joined together in the 1600s at the Bacon Rebellion to fight against the aristocracy. And the aristocracy decided we can't afford to have them doing that. They're too strong together. So race as a color, as an identity, is the son or the child of racism. And the goal of racism is not just to target black and brown people, but the goal of racism is to keep black, brown, and white people from coming together to form a coalition that would transform the country. Yeah, right. We need to know in West Virginia, over 1,300 people are homeless. In West Virginia, In 2017, it would take 66 hours of work per week just to own a basic 2-bedroom apartment. In West Virginia, over 350,000 people, workers make less than 15. That's 50% of the workforce. In West Virginia, over 320,000 people need SNAP or food stamps in West Virginia. So West Virginia and a senator from West Virginia ought to be the last ones holding on to a filibuster. Ought to be the last ones using something like a filibuster that has been the tool of racism and classism and elitism. Ought to be the last ones trying to block people from getting $15 and a union immediately. West Virginia ought to be the last state. Instead, the senators from here ought to be fighting against the filibuster. They ought to be fighting for voter protection. They ought to be fighting to expand more than $15 in a minimum wage. West Virginia senators ought to be saying 15 is not enough. West Virginia senators ought to be fighting for an infrastructure bill, but an infrastructure bill that targets the poor and low wealth first. And do you know the ugly history of filibustering? In 1800, it was used to stop every piece of anti-slavery legislation. Don't you know that the filibuster in 1937, a white mob in Duck Hill, Mississippi, took 2 black men in handcuffs, Roosevelt Towns and Bootjack McDaniel, and they took them in the woods. 300 or 400 people went there. They mutilated them for hours, burning them with a torch. They shot them, they piled up wood around them and burned them and lit the fire, poured gasoline on them. And because of that, the U.S. Representatives responded to the horror by passing an anti-lynching bill that provided penalties against law enforcement. What if we'd had that, considering George Floyd? The bill was against law enforcement and against people and authorized federal prosecution for lynchers. But in the Senate, the Southern members filibustered. Don't you know how this filibuster has worked? Civil rights legislation is the most familiar target, but in 1918, Southern conservatives in the Senate blocked women's suffrage with a filibuster. Notice I didn't say black women. They used the filibuster to block voting rights for women. 5 times between 1942 and 1949, the U.S. House passed bills that sought to limit the use of poll taxes as a prerequisite for voting in federal election. But again, they used the filibuster to block that and keep poll tax in place. Don't you know that Strom Thurmond, Dick Russell, and Byrd used the filibuster to block the Civil Rights Acts of 57 and 64? Don't you know that the filibuster has been used to block labor rights, to hurt labor unions? Don't you know that the filibuster was used in every way to block the ending of the Taft-Hartley Right to Work Act? Don't you know in 1974, a 5-year effort to pass a bill to create an independent consumer protection agency? For 5 years, it was filibustered. Filibustered. So we need to understand this filibuster. Don't you know that in 2014, a Republican filibuster blocked the Protect the Women's Health from Corporate Interference Act? The filibuster was used in this way. So it's not just to stop civil rights. It's not just to stop things that impact black people. The filibuster has been used down through history to block the people and shut the people up and keep this nation from fulfilling its promise to be one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Filibuster is ultimately about shutting people up. The threat of the free exercise of the ballot, said Dr. King, by the Negro and the white masses is what created the segregated society. He said the threat of black and white people coming together to build a great society, to have decent wages and the right to access to vote. That's why you see filibusters and all these other things, because the goal of these tax tactics is for those in the southern aristocracy to hold on to their money. The ultimate goal of the filibuster is a centerpiece of an arcane obstructionist rule in the United Senate. And what it does is it keeps the Senate from having deliberative conversation in front of everybody, debate where everybody can see it. And it's been used to block judicial nominations, to block unemployment benefits, to block national economic emergency benefits, to block environmental protection, to block global climate, to block laws that disclose political contribution and dark money. It's been used to block civil rights and block labor rights and block health care. And we come here today saying it's time to wash away this injustice. It's time to wash away the filibuster. It's time to wash away greed. It's time to wash away the denial of health care. It's time to wash away the denial of living wages. It's time to wash away voter suppression. The truth of America, in America, we've been walking in this political sins far too long. There's too much dirt on us. And it's time to wash them away. And the washing should start right here in West Virginia. And just like Jesus at the Last Supper brought together a moral fusion coalition, people that they didn't expect to be together, tax collectors and strange folk, even women in that day, they all came together. And so here we are. We're coming together. We ain't gonna be silent no more. It's time we go forward together and fight for justice and not backwards supporting a filibuster. Time for us to go forward together and fight for justice and not go backwards with a filibuster. And we're not in this cold for fun. We're in this cold because the fight is on. Right here in West Virginia. Don't let's look at the numbers. We're COVID safe. But understand, in the tradition of Jesus, he started with 12, ended up with 11. But then the day of Pentecost came. 3,000 in one day, and before you know, every time you turned around, when they came into town, they said, who's that crowd? They said, these are they that turned the world upside down. Well, I want you to pan the camera around so that all over the world they can see these are they who gonna turn West Virginia upside down. They're not gonna grow smaller, they're gonna grow larger. More people are gonna come, more people are gonna organize, more people are gonna bring the power. Because we refuse to give up on the possibility of love and justice. We may be seeing crucifixions now, but we are the resurrection. Our love is the resurrection. Our grace is the resurrection. Our mercy, our commitment to speak truth to power is the resurrection that is needed right here in West Virginia, right here in America, and right here in the world. So are we gonna go forward together, y'all? Now what we need you to do, we're gonna watch feet as a symbolic sign that it's time for us to care for one another and wash off all this crazy dirt and sin of injustice and racism and classism and elitism. And then what we need y'all to do here is light up the phones of your senators. Huh? Don't you back up on them. I mean, you need to, and I need all of those. I got a friend at MSNBC, Joy Reid. She said she wants to feature folk from West Virginia for a while. So I need some of you all who will be willing to come on her show and other shows. We need a list, Pam and Gene. We need a list that we can actually give her, that you are willing to come on and tell the truth about what's going on from West Virginia. And they want to see you black and white and from the mountains and from the city, because West Virginia has a story to tell. And the story is that we are coming together in all the ways they have tried to divide us. And we will not be divided, nor shall we be denied. Can I get an amen?